Two retired detectives that were in the thick of New York crime, fast and hectic. They got some stories and some jokes, even an interview with the most popular folks. Off the cuff, one episode just ain't enough. Get a little laughter and an interview too. It's maybe the best thing you can do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD. We got an amazing show tonight. We actually just threw it together because we thought it would just be an interesting thing to talk about, a human interest story, sort of, two guys that grew up in different parts of Brooklyn, and instead of giving in to the temptations of the street, they both became New York City detectives. And to me, that's a hell of an interesting story. I know you got the veal parmesan heroes, you got the shrimp parmesan, you got walking the streets, you got being a tough guy, you get involved in boxing, you got all this stuff in growing up. And it's going to be interesting as all hell. So you should be glad you tuned in tonight. And with me to my right, actually, well, to my left, really, is Tommy Dades, retired first grade detective, boxer, author, Renaissance man, and from Brooklyn. How you doing tonight, Tommy?
I'm doing good there, Bill. Thank you.
It's so great to have you on the show. It's funny. Yeah. I joke about it. I've known Tommy, I don't know, now 6 or 8 months, and I've never met him. The only time I've ever met him is on the show. But I feel like I met him. I feel like we've been buddies for my whole life, But it's sort of funny. We're gonna have dinner together very soon. And of course, my co-host, straight out of Brooklyn. His hair is perfect. Okay, he's from that song Werewolves of London. His hair was perfect, It's Phil Grimaldi. How you doing tonight, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy. Thank you for having me back. We were actually supposed to be having dinner tonight, you, Tommy, and I, but I've been struggling with COVID for the last 10 days or so, almost 2 weeks. I went for 2 or 3 tests. The third one came back positive finally, but I'm actually over the contagious part. I'm just going to play it safe for another day or two. And thank you for all the subscribers, all the well wishes from everybody. Duty Ron, Eddie Wallace got in touch with me. I got in touch with them because they're both going through it as well, their families. So God bless everybody. And it's just a pleasure to have Tommy back. Obviously, another Brooklyn native, and I feel very comfortable. He's my man, Tommy. So let's get to it.
I just want to shout out before we go to it to Lorraine, Factual Breakdown, who apparently also has caught COVID. This is this Omicron thing is out of control. And then, as we said, and I talked about it on Coffee with Cannon during the day, we're all going to get it. No one's going to escape this thing. We're all going to get it. It's when you get it, how severe or less severe it is, But all you folks out there that contracted COVID, your family members, we're all praying for you, everyone to get better quickly and to, I took 2 tests for it this week because I was feeling a little under the weather. I was negative both times, thank God. But as you said, Phil.
Billy, let me just interject something. When I went for my third test, I went with my daughter, and because she had symptoms as well. And when the doctor came in, this really relates to what you did, the point you just make. When he came into the room with the 2 tests in his hand, the rapid test, and he had him in his hand, he looked down, he goes, "Oh, congratulations." So I thought it was 2 negatives. I said, "All right," because I originally was being treated for just bronchitis. And he goes, "Congratulations." I says, "Oh, negative?" He goes, "No, both positive." I says, "What do you mean congratulations?" He's like, "No." He goes, "Trust me." He goes, "It's just going to be like a cold." You could hear I'm still a little nasally. He said, "It's better that you got it now. You got it over it. You had it the first time. It's behind you. I just got over it." So I think that it sounds like the whole thing is weakening. Again, you don't want anybody to get sick at all, but if herd immunity becomes the way that we get rid of this thing over time, God bless. And let's just get rid of it. Supposedly the one that I had, the Omicron, the new one, didn't kill anybody yet in the U.S. It killed one person, I believe, but they had some comorbidities going on and underlying conditions or whatever. So let's just hope that we could get through this. I don't know one person that it hasn't even touched them or someone very close to them in the last couple of weeks. It's amazing. It seems like the whole world is sick at once, but we're going to get through it. We'll be fine.
100%. All right, let's get away from the COVID thing. Let's
Yes.
start talking about Brooklyn. Let's talk because you guys are two Brooklynites, and I pulled up a few photos of some of the. I don't want you guys crying when you see this. You see the Brooklyn Bridge with the old World Trade Center there, and I could have pulled up a picture of it with the new, but we like to see the old World Trade Center. I mean, that was the World Trade Center. I don't know. The new building doesn't do anything for me. You know, I don't know if you guys feel the same way. But the old
100%, Billy. I always said from day one, we should not allow anyone in the world to change our landscape forever. They did. I feel it was very unfortunate. The politicians got involved in the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. I think it's a beautiful building. Don't get me wrong, but it should have went back, even if the buildings had to remain empty, just the way it was. I feel like they won a victory by changing our landscape, but that's a story for another day. Tom,
you know,
your
it's fun.
opinion?
Go ahead, Tommy. I'm sorry.
You got any opinion on that, Tom?
That was my foot post for like 6 months when I worked in the first precinct. And when I got down there that day, I didn't even know where I was because you don't realize what a landmark that is, to see where you are. I didn't even know where I was. I was standing on Liberty and Church and had just didn't understand where the hell I was.
Yeah. Well, let's get a little positive. We got that Brooklyn Bridge. That's a positive thing. That's still standing, thank God. And that leads right to where me and Tommy come from.
Tommy, let's start with you. Where'd you grow up, Tommy?
Sunset Park, Brooklyn.
And tell us a little bit about Sunset Park. What was it like growing up there?
Sunset Park was diversified, predominantly Spanish. After you crossed over 6th Avenue, there was all kinds of nationalities there. I grew up on 47th Street and 8th Avenue. There were bars from 39th Street to 60th Street, probably more on that strip on 8th Avenue than anywhere else in Brooklyn. And they were just like, pool table, bucket of blood type of bars. You know what I mean? A shot and a bucket of blood. I mean, it was a shot, $1 a shot, a quarter of beer.
Not too many strangers walking in those places, right, Tom?
No. If you walked in some of those bars and you didn't know the people that were in there, you had a problem. But I had a lot of fun there, and I felt very comfortable. No matter where you were, if you went back up to that corner, all your friends were up there all hours of the night. We had the Johnny Pump going at 3 a.m. in the summer. We'd have a couch outside. We'd have the jukebox going in the bar with the doors open so we could hear the music. It was a lot. It really was. It was a lot of fun. I wouldn't change that for anything. I had a great time.
So you're saying sort of like the neighborhood protected people that were from the neighborhood, and
when you got back to your own environment, no matter where you were, you just felt safe. And most of us came from broken homes, so we were always out. And at that time, back in those days, you were 15 years old. You were sitting at the bar. We just had a lot of fun. The bartenders, some of them had beautiful cars. Who going to tell us go pick up Danishes and coffee 2 o'clock in the morning. We're 15 years old, driving the cars, no driver's license, no nothing. It was just a lot. It was just a different time.
Where did you go for the Danish, Tom?
Probably 65th Street and what is it, 7th? The diner in the 6-8.
Oh yes. I forgot. What was the name of it again? No, it escapes me.
I forget the name of the diner.
Yeah,
But
it just closed recently too.
That's where we used to go all the time.
Yeah, it was a good diner too.
I remember when Larry Mazza was on the show, and Larry Mazza, of course, was worked with the Grim Reaper, Greg Scarpa, and he told his whole story there. But he said he saw you when you were very young, and you were the youngest guy he ever saw with a tattoo.
Yeah, that was another long story. He used to go to Tony's on Albany and Lefferts, and he got a tattoo for like $20, And I was like 13 or 14 when I got my first tattoo. It was stupidity. My mother wanted to cut my arm off.
Hey. That's great, though. I mean, he remembered that about you, which was
Tasmanian devil.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It was the Tasmanian devil. I just wanted to say how both of you guys, you grew up on these tough streets of Brooklyn, and the temptations were there. You could either go to the wrong side, pick door number one, and it's the wise guy side. Door number two is the NYPD, and you guys both chose to come on the NYPD. And do you credit that also with keeping you out of trouble in your later years? You still can get in a lot of trouble in your 20s, that's for sure. But you guys both chose to go on the NYPD. What do you feel about that, Philly?
Well, my background, my history, my family comes from Coney Island. I'm third generation into Brooklyn. I grew up in Gravesend. That's my graduation from the police academy. That's my dad. I look kind of young in that picture. I was keeping a mustache at that time just to try and look a little older because I really had a baby face. But I come third generation from Coney Island, and I think my grandfather came from Italy, went into World War One. Met my grandmother. He was only here 6 months. Boom, right into the army in World War One. Then, they really struggled through some tough times with 8 kids, and I think they really got the idea of the American dream by working hard, building a big family. And then my parents met. My father was in World War II. After he came home, they met, and so I have a family that they were in the military. They were service people. All of my uncles were in the military. So my calling was the NYPD. I was very lucky because of my family, and I had older friends. They always kind of kept me out of trouble. Trouble was around a lot with me growing up. There were times when I almost got into a stolen car that was running left by the schoolyard one day, and somebody grabbed me by the collar. Sure enough, here came anti-crime. What are you guys doing by this car? Had I gotten in that car, I probably would have gotten collared. Might not have had that beautiful rack of medals that you were just showing. But
Oh,
thank God it worked out good. It worked out really good for me. I think because, like I was saying, third generation, all the people that were older, they went through the mill a little bit. My neighborhood, there was some heavy duty characters. I'm going to throw one name out there that Tommy will know: Tommy Patera, aka Tommy Karate, a madman, serial killer, known organized crime guy. I had people that I knew, friends of mine, that actually dealt drugs for him. So I could have very easily been pulled in that direction. I just had an influence from a strong family influence. I have an older brother that's 3 years older than me, always was knocking me around anytime that I had, stepping out of line a little bit. My big brother, Big Nick, he's 6'2.5", and he had a wallop of a punch, so he kept me in line. But again, my father, my uncles, I had an uncle that owned a junkyard in Coney Island, so they knew the streets, I think, is what I'm trying to say, and they kind of steered me and my brother and my sister in the right direction, and we all turned out pretty good. I got a great education from the street, though, because I did work on Avenue U and a Sala Maria, and I was around a lot of wise guys, so I got a good education. I got a good knowledge. I could throw a lot of names out there: Frankie Lino, Eddie Lino, Bobby Lino, Nicky Black. I was there today working on the job when he was gunned down in the street. Just so many different people. So I saw it all. I was close to it, but I made a right instead of a left, and I went down the right path. Thank God.
Philly, let me just shout out to our folks. Thank you so much. This is one of our, well, tomorrow night will be our last show of 2021. It's been an exciting year for Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. We sort of split it. My partner, Mark DeMeo, is doing Police Off the Cuff After Hours, and I sort of hooked up with Phil and doing Real Crime Stories, and I did that like halfway into the year, and it's been very successful. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm so happy a lot of you guys joined the Police Off the Cuff YouTube family, and also our Patreon family. Help to support us, help us to keep going every day. And I just want to shout out to all you folks that are members of our YouTube. The Pranzos have been with us from the beginning. Lieutenant Pete and his wife, Chella. Thank you so much for all you do for us. Stephen Revo Gates, I've seen you I've seen you in the chat a lot. Margaret Hearn, Nikki Bella, all you folks in the green font, Kathy Bates, Single Mama 4. I appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, give us a thumbs up. We could use going into 2022. We could use all the followers we can get, and we got some exciting stuff, some exciting guests going on. Enough promotion. Let me get back to these two Brooklynites. And Tommy Dades, if you guys don't know, he has one of the most exciting stories that really hasn't totally been told. And if you haven't seen this book, it's called Friends of the Family, and it's the inside story of the Mafia Cops case. And the Mafia Cops, from left to right, it's Stephen Caracappa, the guy in the upper on this book, on the left, and to the right is Louis Ippolito. And these guys were actually doing hits for the mob. And Tommy Dades and a whole crew of other investigators from the Brooklyn DA's office, as well as the FBI, built a case against these two guys. And they actually both got to retire from the NYPD. And while they were both living out in Arizona, they were arrested. And Tommy can tell you more about this story, but it's a fascinating story. Tommy, you want to comment on that?
I mean, it was a very good case. There was a lot of people that were very instrumental in making that case, materialize. It wasn't a corruption. It didn't start off as any kind of corruption case. It fell into an organized crime case, and they just fell into it. And there were 14 murders that were proven that they were involved in one way or another. They actually were there and pulled the trigger. They pulled the trigger on one. They were there and kidnapped another guy where Louis' cousin pulled the trigger. And the rest, they gave guys up, gave information who was informants, ran guys' names for them to go after. They compromised wires, bugs. I mean, whatever they had to do, they did, and they really skated for a very long time. They were living out in Vegas, and DEA got involved in Vegas, monitoring them. And while the investigation was going on in New York, Joe Ponzi, the chief of the Brooklyn DA's office, played a very significant part in flipping Burt Kaplan. Frank Drew from the DEA is the one who arrested Burt Kaplan to get him in a position to flip. Mike Vecchione was the original prosecutor in the state. It ended up going federally, which was better off because you were able to, instead of facing 25 to life, you're facing life upon conviction.
Tommy, could I just stop you for 1 second, please? Andy Gabby Cabby, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Tommy, I wanted to say this case was probably the biggest corruption case in the history of the NYPD, because it involved murders. It involved murders, which is there's no higher crime than a murder. Yet it didn't get the publicity that other corruption cases have gotten. Michael Dowd probably got more press than the Mafia Cops, but this was probably the worst corruption case in the NYPD history.
10 times worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a long. They did things for a very long time. There was just no way to actually, at the time, to nail them when way before I got involved. People were aware of what they were doing and tried, but they didn't have the right evidence to move forward. But Betty Heidel, one of the victims' mothers, is the one who really jump-started and actually testified against them in court and put them at the scene of mistakenly trying to grab one son, and they ended up grabbing the wrong son. And that same day, that other son was grabbed. And
well, Tommy, tell everyone also how the misinformation provided by Stephen Caracappa to the mob wound up with the murder of a totally innocent, 21, 22-year-old kid?
Well, what happened was there was a printout that he did. He ran a group search on the name of Nicky Guido. Nicky Guido, the real Nicky Guido, was part of a murder conspiracy to kill Gaspar Queso. There was a hit team of 4 guys. And they got those names from torturing Jimmy Heidel when they kidnapped him. And that's how he knew the other 3 people that were involved. So Caracappa did a group search because Nicky Guido supposedly came from downtown Brooklyn, roundabout age, whatever the looks were. And the real Nicky Guidos was listed. There were only 8 Nicky Guidos at the time listed in New York State. The real Nicky Guido's address was upstate New York. So they found one like Prospect Heights, like around there. And it's only like half a mile away from going downtown Brooklyn. So he thought that was the guy. And they happened to have both drove red cars. And on Christmas Day, the wrong Nicky Guido was showing his uncle his car. And there were 3 people from the Lucchese family there. And one of them shot Nicky Guido like 5 or 6 times and killed him. And that was the wrong Nicky Guido. So an innocent person was murdered because of the information they provided to Queso.
That's unbelievable.
Billy, I got a question for you, Billy. I got a question that's really directed towards Tommy because he's being very modest when he tells the story. And I think this might bring out a good point to show how big of a corruption case this really was. Bill, how many people from the NYPD do you know were interviewed on 60 Minutes? I don't know anybody other than Tommy Dage right there.
Tommy Dage is the only one he's the only one I know,
Yeah. And they actually ran the story 3 different times. They did 3 different episodes. Am I correct, Tom?
Yeah.
60 Minutes did 3 episodes. So, I mean, that gives you the magnitude of just how big this corruption case was. They were contract murderers for organized crime. And for whatever reason, one reason or another, I guess maybe the police department, the city didn't want bad press, bad publicity, but it fell into Tommy's lap, Joe's lap, Mike Vecchione's lap, and they did what they had to do. And they put away 2 very bad guys, and they cleared a lot of murders.
Bite Me, thank you for the $20 super chat. Happy New Year to you also. Thank you so much for your support. Yeah, one of the things about this case too, which I found so egregious too, and I had read this book. This was the book of Louis Ippolito, which is just pure bullshit. If you read this book, he really sort of just glorifies mob guys. Meanwhile, he's the detective. He made the mob look like it was the higher level of integrity and justice and, La Cosa Nostra, and made the police department look like, oh, the police department was. Meanwhile, he's a dirty cop. And
that's the book that nailed him because he went on a Sally Jesse Raphael show and Betty Heidel was watching it. And she pinned him out as being the guy by a house. That's
right. That's how she picked him out because he was on. He was believing.
And she ID'd both of them.
Yeah, he was believing his own press, and he was just promoting his own stuff, right? And that wound up to be partly his demise, right?
Yeah, no, he got jammed up in 1984 for being allegedly. He was alleged to have passed information to Rosario Gambino, where his fingerprints were found on paperwork when they did a warrant on Rosario Gambino's house. And whatever charges there were, he beat it at the trial room. But if you look through that folder, that IED folder, and I showed you a folder, I'm not going to mention his name, he was a dear friend of mine who did lose his job. And you looked at both those folders, and I asked you who should have got convicted and who should have been declared innocent. The folder was overwhelming evidence against Ippolito that he did supply that information to Rosario.
I know who you're talking about, Tommy. 100% on that. I know exactly who you're talking about. Tom, I just want to back up a little bit. So basically, the book is what got him to be on Sally Jesse Raphael. And who was it that spotted him? And that sort of helped the case. Was that Betty Heidel?
Betty Heidel, yeah.
So Betty Heidel, who was the mother of one of the victims, because he has the book and goes on Sally Jesse at Raphael, she remembers that he was there the day that her son was, that they were looking for her son.
And she opens it up and sees a picture of both Louis and Caracappa. And that's them.
Isn't that ironic? That friggin' book that he was bragging about himself as being whatever turns to come back and bite him on the ass. Good for that. because listen, they brought disgrace to our job, to our shield, and I don't think there's anything worse than what those two animals did. So I'll just leave it at that.
People have asked me and asked us if we would have Michael Dowd on our show, and I never asked him because I wouldn't want to have him on the show, because I find that his behavior really affected us when we were on the job, because he was such a dirty, dirty cop. To even think that a cop could do the things that he did. When I watched that documentary, The 7-5, I couldn't even believe how disgusting that was, the things that he did, And then when you compare Ippolito and Caracappa, they were bigger scumbags. They were committing murders, And when you think
killing
about
innocent people, that poor kid, Nicky Guido. I mean,
Yeah.
Christmas Day, he's showing off his brand new car and he catches 5 bullets, nearly kills his uncle that he's showing the car to. I mean, that alone. And that was really. Go ahead, Tom.
He jumped in front of his uncle to save him.
I mean, the kid was like a hero, and now, and that really became intricate in flipping Burton Kaplan, which kind of made the whole case, fall into place. Correct, Tom?
According to Joe Ponzi, that was something that he didn't really care about the other people who got killed because they were all involved in whatever they were involved in. But the kid, Nicky Guido, the wrong Nicky Guido, got killed. It was weighing on his conscience because he was an innocent victim. He had nothing to do with anything. He just got caught in the middle of something he should never got caught. And I remember looking at the printout when I found it, and I was praying to God that it was the wrong birth date of the real Nicky Guido, and it was. That was that was a printout that he used his tax number and his name to run at a major case.
So it was attached.
He ran at 2 weeks before Nicky Guido, the wrong Nicky Guido.
Who's he, Tom? Who are you saying he?
Caracap.
Okay.
Tommy, one of the things, and I mean, this is an amazing story, and I'd like to do a full episode just on this case because we're just scratching the surface of it. And I know that down the road, someone's going to make a movie of this or, a TV series. I know that it was already planned and it fell through. But it's such a great, great story.
There's so many spin-offs to this story. There's so many people involved that did a great job, a lot of hard work, and it's just I think there's so much that went on. One story goes into another story that goes into another story, and it's so hard for anybody to really grasp unless you were intimately involved in all of it, And there's a piece of a puzzle that everybody brings to the table. So many people bring to the table. It's just amazing how the stars were aligned with it, between the DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Brooklyn DA's office, really did an amazing job. Really
but I think you're minimizing it, Tommy. I think it's a great, great story, and it's a great, great case. And I know you want to give credit to everyone, but if this was me, I would say Cannon, the series.
Big Guns Cannon, he's coming to get you.
This is what I'm pitching to the TV stations, Cannon, the series, and we'll talk about what the story is later.
Yeah. Tom, you're doing a justice shout out to everybody, but I think the fact that this case stretched over over 20 years, correct? I mean, from the time we know about their criminal behavior,
we know that they were partners in the robbery squad in 1979. We know by a conversation that Burt Kaplan had with Louis Ippolito's cousin in, I believe it was 1983 in prison, that the cousin told Kaplan, my cousin would do anything that you need. So it kind of establishes that he was already doing some crazy stuff.
Now, Tommy, Louis Ippolito's cousin was a made guy, right? That wasn't clear.
No, he wasn't a made guy.
Oh, he wasn't? I thought he was a made guy. According to the book, he was a made guy.
No, he wasn't a made guy. He wasn't a made guy. He was an associate of Lucchese crime friend. And he had mentioned to Kaplan, anything you need. So the one thing we never found out was how Louis and Steve, how they became, involved together in such crazy stuff where they trusted each other. That's never been ever been the only people who knew that. I guess they took it to the grave with them. But prior to 1983, they're doing bad stuff. We don't know what they were doing. After 83, when Kaplan gets out of jail, that's when it all begins, and it's all got to do with the shooting of Queso that starts it off. But Kaplan already used him in a murder where they grabbed this guy Greenwald off the highway, and they actually bring him to a garage on Nostrand Avenue, and that body was recovered. And the owner of that garage, cooperated when he was approached. And that was one loose thing they left behind, because they left behind the guy who witnessed, Louis' cousin kill the guy with them there playing chicky, and they ripped him off the highway, brought him to his death, and that guy gave up, exactly where the body was, and they buried him, in the garage. But Louis and Steve didn't know where the body was buried because they left right after he was killed.
But Tommy, this is also another big sort of like eyesore or pain for NYPD internal affairs, because all these big cases.
I never notified.
No, but I'm just saying is that they never knew about these guys, which shows, sort of incompetence. They also never knew about Dowd. Dowd was arrested by the Suffolk County Department. So it's sort of
IAD was on to Dowd.
Joe Hall was on to Dowd before anybody was on to Dowd.
There was also the sergeant that worked in the 6-1 squad.
FIAU sergeant.
What was good guy? Good guy. He was on him, but he was working by himself. Oh, geez, I can't believe I can't think of his name, but he was working on Dowd by himself.
Yeah, he was
on demand, and he was very close to making a collar on it. And he informed, I believe, what was it? Suffolk County eventually arrested him.
DEA was also involved in everything.
Yeah, they pulled the carpet out from under him. I can't think of his name. Not Towel. He had
he was a nice guy. I remember.
Good guy. But again, bringing up Dowd. Now, Dowd was a real piece of garbage. And Billy, you said you'd never want to interview him. I agree with you. Just one quick story about what he did in that 7-5 when they responded to a burglary, and the woman was at work, and she was a single parent, and her daughter, maybe 11, 12 years old, goes in, sees the apartment has been ransacked, runs out, calls the police. They go in, there's nobody in there, and they make the kid call the mother and say, where did you have the money? He'd want to check if it's still there. She had like a couple of $1,000 in a shoebox up in the closet. The mother tells the kid on the phone. She tells the cops. They steal the woman's money, a single parent. That to me was like, robbing from drug dealers is bad enough, but a single parent, they had to steal a couple of $1,000 from a woman living in a ghetto in a bad area trying to make it. So to me, those guys are lowlifes. I actually went to the academy with one of the guys that was involved in that. I liked the guy. He was a good guy. He just wound up in a bad situation, I guess.
But Phil, what was the worst thing for me with Dowd was when the transit cop Venable, I think his name was Robert Venable. I could be wrong about the first name. He was killed in a shootout in the 7-5 by the same drug dealers that Dowd was doing business with. And Dowd in the documentary, the 7-5, was like, I grabbed him in my arms and I threw him into. I was like, dude, you cannot be a cop now. You're a dirty piece of shit. Don't tell us how you took the cop that was dying and threw him in your radio car and rushed him to the hospital, because you already traded your soul. It's too late. You cannot be absolved. You cannot, the Lord isn't going to come and absolve you of your sins,
Absolutely, Billy. And when you think about it now, just think about the couple of things we just said about Dowd. These guys were that much worse because they were killing people, whether they were organized crime people, you could say people that might have been, dirty or they deserved it. And then they were killing innocent people. And then the thing that really bothers me is I honored that badge that's over my shoulder. I honored that. to me, there was nothing more in the world that I wanted when I became a cop than that badge. And these guys tarnished it. They dirtied it. And it's something, the tarnish will never go away from that. To think that NYPD detectives, that there's only a class of few people that are on the job that get to be those detectives that we all shared in being in the detective bureau. It's not everybody. It's a percentage of the police department that makes it into the detective bureau and does this kind of work. And now you got these two guys that sold their badges for money and killed people. I mean, to me, there's nothing worse.
Just not a funny story, but while we were doing that case, Eppolito mentions Chief Nicastro, that he put his finger in his chest, and this whole bullshit story, and I knew that wasn't true. And I called Chief Nicastro, and when I called him, he would not talk to me unless I had somebody 3 stars or above vouch for me, which I got. And I called him back, and he was a total gentleman on the phone. And the first question he asked me is, "I hope you're calling me to tell me you're going to put handcuffs on that fat bastard." that was his exact words to me.
That's great.
And Louis Ippolito makes he bulldozed Nicastro around, and I know for a fact that wasn't true.
Yeah. Well, it's never true when someone like 5, 6 ranks below is saying they're bulldozing a boss. That's not happening on the police department. That's totally like, "Oh, I told this chief. I told you." All he has to do is say, "Dude, step out of my office."
The rough and tumble guy in Nicastro. I remember when I was a rookie.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, but what these guys did, Tom, for whatever reason, it didn't make it to the big screen yet. And as you know, with Donnie Brasco, with Joe Pistone, it took a lot of years. I'm sure that this story will be told sometime soon. And I just can't believe that, maybe because it's just such a complicated and long story. Maybe that's the reason that it never makes it over the hurdles. But
Philly, I think they're just waiting for you and I to be ready to play some of the top detective roles in this movie.
All right.
Once they know we're ready, Police Off the Cuff is kicking ass. They're gonna give us a call.
I'm ready.
Wait, weren't you guys on The Perfect Murder? Yeah, come in for an audition.
Yeah. You know what? Since we're talking about success stories from Brooklyn, which I think we really are success stories based on where we came from, I really owe a shout out to 2 people. My mother, who was a tough woman, and I talked about it when we did a little tribute to her last week on the date anniversary of when she passed, and my uncle Frank Tomasino, who was a cop in the 60s and 70s, and he used to come to my house when I was a kid, and he would take his gun out and unload it and show us his gun and stuff. I mentioned him before, but though I would be remiss if I didn't mention those 2 people, that they were big influences on what put me on the right track in life. And I mentioned my big brother Nick, and he texted me that a little while ago. He's like, "Don't forget mommy. She was tough and I was afraid of her." My mother was really, she was a single parent. My parents split up when I was about 11. My brother's a little older than me, but she took over as mom and dad for quite a few years and keeping an eye on us. And we had good relatives. So that's really what kept me on the, kept me grounded, kept me on the straight and narrow, and sent me into the right direction.
And Tommy, look at the picture on the screen right now. Want to tell us who's in that picture?
That's Mike Vecchione that my arm's around. He was the chief. He was the chief of trials. He was the chief of the homicide bureau, and I worked for him when he was the chief of the rackets bureau. We've done many cases together. Great trial attorney, probably the best one the Brooklyn DA's office ever had. Standing next to me on the other side is Joe Ponzi, who started out in the DA's office as an investigator and put in 37.5 years and ended up the chief investigator of Brooklyn DA's office. Joe is a class act, and Joe's instrumental in why the mob cop case went. Standing next to Joe is Arthur Aidala, who worked in the Brooklyn DA's office. We did a homicide case together, high-profile case in the 6-8, and Arthur was one of the attorneys and did an amazing job. And Arthur now is in private practice, and you see him all the time. He used to be a commentator on Fox 5 News, and he does so many high-profile cases now. I mean, everybody knows who he is. So it was a great team of guys great bunch of
And
guys.
Tommy, you still have this suit, and part B, does it fit? Does it fit anymore?
Long time ago.
I love seeing old suits. I don't know what happened to that suit. There's no way I'll fit in that anymore, you know?
Hey, Bill, could you put that picture of Tommy and Mike and everybody back up for a second? I just want to point something out.
Sure, sure.
Now, well, two things really. One, that's 4 more Brooklyn success stories right there. Mike, Tommy, Joe, and Arthur. Obviously, Tommy said who they were. Everybody knows who they are. Joe's going through a little bit of a rough patch right now. He's recovering from, he had some issues, health issues, but he's doing well. Prayers for him. Artie Idala, he's right now just in the news recently representing Lawrence Taylor. He's always in a high-profile case. Great guy, Brooklyn guy, Bay Ridge native. Joe's from Brooklyn. And Mike Vecchione, who we've had on the show, author of, I believe, 3 books, working on his 4th, I think, Tom. Is that correct? Something like that. And another great guy from Brooklyn as well. And I don't know if you guys could see it, but the World Trade Center is in the background in that picture. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, that picture, you can't see it. The picture that I have, they're very clear. That's right outside 1PP. So you see both Twin Towers. I believe that's March 26th of 2001. So it's a couple of months before it happened.
Tom, why don't you tell us now? That's the day you got 1st grade, right? You promoted to 1st grade that day. There's a little quick story that I thought was pretty amusing. Maybe you want to tell us about that when you got notified?
Well, we had the team, that was working on Intel. I have 2 partners, dear friends, Jimmy Hawkins, Mike Galetta, and it was me, Jimmy Hawkins, Mike Galetta, and Lieutenant O'Brien in that one team in the intelligence division. And Jimmy and Mike got promoted to as we were leaving, got promoted to 2nd grade, came down on the computer teletype, and I congratulated them. And I was on the boxing team, and I remember I was in the ring sparring that night. And when I get out of the ring, there's that's where we have beepers, and there was a beep to the main front desk in Intel at the back. With all ones in front of it. So I called them back and I was like, "What's up?" And they said, "You're getting promoted to 1st grade." And I thought they were just breaking my chops. And I said, "The orders came down already." I said, "There's no way they're promoting 3 guys on the same team." And I said, "The orders came down already." And I didn't even know I was put in for it. And they said, "No, it came down a telephone message." So it was really great because the 3 of us got promoted together. So it was a lot of fun. Got a lot of pictures with the 3 of us. And it was an honor to retire at that rank.
Folks, for those outside of New York that don't, when we talk about 1st grade detective, 2nd grade detective, 3rd grade detective, 1st grade detective is the highest ranking detective rank on the job. But to put it in more interesting terms, a 1st grade detective makes lieutenants pay, and unlike most lieutenants, a 1st grade detective can make lots of overtime. So it's a much better rank actually to have an investigator of the 1st grade, because they can, they can make crazy amounts of overtime, because especially if you're in homicide or a unit like he's talking about, Intel, where they let you run with the cases, they let you get that investigative overtime. So it's when we talk about 1st grade, 2nd grade, that's what we're talking. Because I remember one time I said, "Oh, he's a 2nd grade detective," and someone thought I was making a disparaging remark. No, 2nd grade is a rank that 2nd grade detective on NYPD makes sergeants pay. So I just want to explain that for you folks in the chat.
Really, I think what you were talking about is you said 2nd grade. Somebody thought you said 2nd rate, which obviously you didn't. I think you were referring to me. But I want to make another point about that real quick, because on the police department, if you get promoted to detective, you have to be in an investigative capacity for a certain number of time, and you obviously have to have good reviews. And they give you evaluations every so often. You have to have good evaluations. So that's you get made detective, you're 3rd. Then as you do better, you get 2nd, and then you get 1st. And I want to point out the prestige of 1st grade, just to give you an idea of how hard it is, how hard you have to work, and what prestige there is in it. If an officer, a patrolman, is killed in the line of duty, they posthumously promote him to 1st grade detective. And I think that obviously, you're getting killed in the line of duty to get it. So you have to work pretty hard to be on the same, the value. I'm just trying to give it a value to it. So, Tom, first grade detective, a lot of prestige and a hat tip to you.
Phil, I want you to go do this quickly, and then we'll get back to.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Have you found yourself in a jam? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you could email joe@jmurray-law.com, and you could also catch him on Allegedly Guilty podcast. Little rusty there, but I got it out.
Yeah. What do you want from me? That's what he's saying there. All right. But he's a great attorney, great guy, great friend of the show. Tommy, did you ever box Joe Murray?
Oh, I never did. I never did.
He was a heavyweight too. He fought on the PBA boxing team. But
there were two teams. I don't know which one he was on. There were two teams, two different coaches.
Okay.
It's good that you brought that up, Billy, because Tommy not only solved one of the most infamous corruption cases, worked on, I don't know if I want to say he solved it by himself. Obviously, he worked on it with other people, but he was very, very important to solving that case, the mafia cops. But then in his retirement and while he was active, he was down in Park Hill training kids from the inner city to box, keeping them out of trouble, maybe saving a couple of kids from the streets, so to speak. And Tom, why don't you give us a little bit about that, what you did?
I mean, that was a great, after I retired, and boxing for me was over. Patty Russo, who still runs it, Cops and Kids, and commend Patty tremendously, and Dave Seed, who's still the coach of the New York's Fighting Finest. Patty offered me a job with the PAL, working at a Park Hill, which still exists today. And I worked with Gary Starks, who's a very famous trainer to this day. We had a great thing going, the city with the PAL and all the PAL gyms, until 5 years into it, the PAL banned boxing. And I did a little stint with Cops and Kids for a while, and then I ended up running a few other gyms, and I ended up, the last place I was with Zeb Judah's father, Yoel. We had a gym together for quite a few years. And but always stayed close to Cops and Kids, and always in touch with all those guys. And I still keep in touch with those kids till today. Park Hill was like a home away from home. I miss it. It was a great time. We had Mike Tyson down there, Emil Griffith, the world champions that would come down there to spar all the time. It was a great gym. And it's still
Tommy, one of the things that when they talk about money going to different things in the police department, and I think that's a great thing for the money to go to programs for kids, sports programs for kids that, can keep the kids off the street, keep the kids training, keep them trying to stay in shape, keep them having positive role models. And these are the things.
Fact that the boxing, in those neighborhoods was an asset. And why the PAL got rid of it, I'll never know. But Patty was able to keep 3. I believe there were 6 or 7 at the time. And, we used to have meetings once a week on 12th Street, PAL headquarters. We got paid peanuts, we weren't doing it for the money. But it was a great job. The shows, the tournaments, it was just a nice thing. It was all retired cops that were running it, and I had a great time.
It's amazing too. Even in the 3-4, they have that Michael Busick Little League program, baseball program, and some of the kids that have came through that program have become on the NYPD. Some of them were inspectors. I think one of them is a chief now, and they came up through that baseball program that was named after Michael Busick, who was slain on the streets of the 3-4, I believe, back in 1992.
No, it was earlier than that, Billy. 86.
Oh, you're right. It may have been right because there was
Holbein and Busick were killed on the same day. Remember?
That's right.
They were both had a mass together.
OLPH.
OLPH.
I was there. OLPH. That's my wife's parish, actually, and it's a most beautiful church in Brooklyn. I think one of the most, anyhow. It has the double entranceway staircase, and they had both funerals were held there. It was just an unbelievable sad day, but a beautiful send off for those two heroes.
Absolutely, folks. Thank you so much for supporting Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I don't know if you guys caught it, but Phil Grimaldi, besides being a good investigator and a up and coming podcaster, a good co-host, is also an Italian cook. And we did a little episode on Philly making some spaghetti sauce, and I had originally just released it to our YouTube and our Patreon members. And then Philly actually said, "Hey, why don't you put it out for everybody?" After like two or 3 weeks. So I put it out there, and it's catching on fire right now. And people are actually commenting, "Oh, I followed all the steps. That's a really good sauce." You want to comment on that, Philly?
Well, I think we just threw that together so quick. I just went into the cabin. I pulled out a few things. I threw the camera with the laptop into my kitchen. I had an apron on. I don't know if you could tell. I had a little apron on, and we just winged it. But it turned out pretty good. Tom, did you get to watch it today?
I didn't watch it. I got the link.
Okay. All right, but I think it turned out pretty good. I think people liked it. It's a completely different animal compared to what we normally do on Police Off the Cuff. It was short, it was sweet, but it was some of the recipes of my wife and my mother's cooking. And I can do it. I really don't. My wife does all the cooking in the house, but I've made sauce before, and I've made meatballs and stuff when I was single. But so I think we're going to try it again. We're going to maybe try some other stuff, other recipes. And do you have any clip from it to play, Bill? Or we're not?
I'd have to have it queued up, but
all right, no big deal. But I think everybody will look for it and they'll find it. Maybe we'll link it to this episode or whatever. And it came out pretty good. I thought it was a little bit funny. A little bit ethnic, I guess, because I was throwing on my Brooklyn accent a little bit, but
a little thicker than usual.
Pretty fun.
Real with Robo says, "I like to remind Phil about internet rules. You post it, you make it for the class. When's supper, Phil?" I like that.
That's a good. I like that rule. That's good.
The next time we're gonna, he said he's gonna try to do some demonstration on some veal cutlet parmesan. That could be interesting. Yeah. All the parmesans. I love shrimp parmesans, my favorite, and that's not so easy to make.
No, it's really not that difficult, Billy. It's almost the same as a veal or chicken parmesan. I'm gonna brush up on that just to be sure, because I don't really make that so much, but it's not that difficult. It's I think the ingredients of what you put in the breading might be a little bit different as opposed to breadcrumb and stuff. I think it's more like in the floury and breadcrumb mix, but we'll get to that.
Well, we're making people in the chat hungry. People are starting to leave. We can't talk about
getting hungry
food,
myself. I didn't eat.
I am too. I'm talking about this and my mouth's watering. But so, we started out talking about how you guys both grew up in Brooklyn and you took the route that got you off the streets and you both became New York City detectives. And, here you are now. I don't know what year you came on, Tommy. What year did you come on, Tommy?
July 1984.
84. You came on a year before me. And Philly, what year did you come on?
January 82. I was a transit cop, and then I rolled over to the NYPD in January of 83. So my career started at 82, actually.
Yeah, I came on January 85. So both you hairbags had more time than me. Not much, but a little more. I love that term, hairbag. It's such a great term. And I think the derivation of that was that they said old-time cops would never buy new uniforms. So it looked like their duty jacket was growing hair because it got so frayed. Yeah, and that's where the name hairbag came from. And also, if you know anything about the police service, we get $1,000 check right before Christmas to buy new uniforms. Who's going to use it to buy new uniforms? Right. Everyone uses it to buy Christmas presents for their kids, So
and another nickname for the uniform is being in the bag. So
being
if
in
you
the
have
bag,
the little hairs on the bag, hairbag, you got it right there.
That's right. So, that's one of the reasons you wanted to get out of the bag, because you didn't have to buy new uniforms. And also, as the years go by on the police department, you expand a little bit. No one weighs the same as they weighed in the police academy. I was 195 in the police academy. And when I retired, I think I was like 210, that's not that bad. That's only 15 pounds. But some people expand exponentially, as you guys can attest to.
Billy, you know what happened to me? When I was in the police academy, I was like a 48-inch chest. I was benching 350 pounds, and my waist was like a 33, let's say. Now my chest is like a 42, and my waist is like a 36. So it went down, you know?
That's great.
At 21 to where I am now. So it's
There's the movie. There's the movie we're gonna make right there.
yeah. You know what's sad about that? You got a few good success stories, and you got those other two guys also come from Brooklyn, and they were not successful stories. They were total disasters what they did.
You know, a class just graduated from the police academy, and I don't know anyone personally, but Marianne DeLugo McGinnis, who came on our show, and she's very open about the fact that her husband, who was a sergeant, committed suicide, and she is a spokesperson for suicide prevention, all of that stuff. And her son just graduated from the police academy. I mean, she was so proud. And when I look at cops graduating from the police academy right now, I just think about what a difficult road they have ahead of them, and not a lot different than us, because I think we had more support. We had more support from the politicians. We had more support from the community. We had more support from everyone. And today it's a new world with video cameras. Cops have to wear body-worn video above their shield. The shit they have to take from the community is like I, and Phil. We wouldn't last. We wouldn't last a day. You'd be cracking someone across the face. And we had the charge all thing, which was disorderly conduct. Doesn't seem like they have that anymore, because
Doesn't seem like they have anything anymore.
No, they're not allowed to. Joe Murray's in the chat. Oh my God, there he is. Joe Murray. Hello,
Joe Murray.
hello all. Joe, it's too late. We already plugged your commercial.
You know what, Billy? You're making a point about the things that go on today with the cops, that they get spit on and they have to stand there, or they get cursed at and they get pushed, and just so many bad things. It's not in my DNA or your DNA or Tommy's DNA where we came from to allow a person to do that to you. Now you put on the uniform. And when I put that uniform on, I felt like I was representing something more than myself. I was representing my badge, my uniform. So to me, it was like I couldn't back down. So now they have to back down, basically, is what they're being told. And it's just not in our DNA to be. That's why you're saying we wouldn't be able to do it. And I agree with you. It's just, I couldn't do that on the street today. If somebody came in my face the way that they go in these cops' face today, I wouldn't be able to back down from. I don't know if I'd wind up in handcuffs, but it's just not in my DNA to do it.
I couldn't do that either. I really couldn't
Of course not.
put up with the shit that they're expected to take.
Nor should you or anyone. I have a personal space. Everyone has it. You should not have to put up with that. Right, Tom?
Once somebody puts their hands on you, it's game over. It's wrong. And if they're going to do that to a cop in uniform, then what are they going to do to a civilian? They just. I mean, it's not just the NYPD. It's throughout the country. And it's just sad because, when people need help, who they call them? 911, and they're making cops second guess themselves. They're going to cost police officers their life. And nobody.
Highest murder rate of police officers this year. Highest rate of officers killed in the line of duty this year, Tom. I'm glad you brought that up.
Nobody seems to care, No. Nobody really seems to care. And it's really, like, law and order, what a cop's supposed to be. It just, the whole aspect of every time a cop does something, they're getting indicted, they're getting second guessed, they're called racist. You ever want to try to call me racist? I won the Black Achievement Award. It's not going to fly, and that's the last thing I ever would be, and nor do I respect people who are. But no matter whether you're green, white, black, purple, brown, if you disrespect me, you put your hands on me, you're going to get a crack in that. It's not a boxing match. You're going to lose.
Most of those kids you were training down in Park Hill were African-American kids, if I'm correct.
Those kids were the best. You know, those kids were the best. And
All they needed was they needed a helping hand, and you would add helping hand. So.
listen, not just me. I mean, there was a lot of cops involved in PALs, and you know, it was great because kids from inner city neighborhoods got to see another side of what they may have been thought was different. And you know, I love these kids like they were my sons, and they were great. They were great kids, and they still are. They're still down there, you know. But
You know, guys, we have Jimmy Calandra from Bath Avenue Stories in the chat, sending my love to all you guys, wishing you all a blessed new year to come. 2022, Tommy Dades is my guy. Woo, Tommy Dades is the man, you know.
That's another person he gave a helping hand to.
You know, I think that Jimmy Calandra's looking for a part in the movie, too.
Cross-pollination there, Billy.
We're all trying to get a part in this movie that hasn't been made yet. You know, people have called me. They're like, oh, you think Tommy Dades would talk to me? I know someone might. No, I don't think he, you know. We want to hear Metro Goldwyn Mayer or Netflix. We want to hear HBO. I'm not looking to hear some, you know, investigation discovery, even though that's where Phil and I got our start, right?
Yeah, that was actually, I do really owe a big thank you to Ricky Torelli and
Kevin Kaufman
from The Perfect Murder. And I was going to sum up tomorrow night for our last show of the year. I'll save that for tomorrow because I'm going to take a couple of little thank yous tomorrow night because it's going to be our last show of the year. And I'll leave it at that. We'll get into that tomorrow. But yeah, that's where we met. That was a great experience. That's how I met my partner here, Bill.
Jimmy Calandra wants to play Tommy Dades. I don't know. Does he have the swagger? Does he got that Tommy?
Jimmy's got the swagger.
I'm just kidding. I think that's great. Yeah, folks, tomorrow night, Phil and I are doing our last show of the year, and we're going to touch upon four of the biggest cases that we presented over the past year. One, of course, Summer Wells. There's nothing new we're going to report. We're just going to recap it. Of course, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, the case that caught international attention, which was, you know, of course, a tragic end for both of them, which also brings up domestic violence. The other thing was the Murdoch case from Beaufort, South Carolina, that could be a TV series, that case.
It will be. I'm sure it will be.
And then finally, the Alec Baldwin case, which is probably just a big case because he's such a blowhard, that guy. I've never seen a person that's more hated. You know, and you know, think everyone wanted to say, I think preliminarily they would think of that as an accident. But here's this guy that was so judgmental on everyone else. And now it's his turn to have people be judgmental on him. You know,
you walk in their shoes, and now karma comes back. It always does.
Yeah. And in 2017, he made a comment about a Los Angeles cop that was in a shooting. And he said, I wonder what it's like to wrongfully kill someone. And that cop was cleared, and the shooting was ruled justifiable. Now I'd like to ask Alec Baldwin, I wonder what it feels like to, you know, unjustified
actors, and they act in movies. What gives them the right to like use that to judge people that they have no?
It's a platform. It's a false platform. Yeah,
I mean,
they have.
What makes him? You know, give me a break. You know, he's a fucking moron.
You know what? Karma is a bitch. And the unfortunate thing is that two people were shot. One young lady that was really looked like such a beautiful person was killed with a little boy and a husband. So,
Very sad.
yeah, it's very sad. And it was all due. We'll get into it tomorrow, but it was all due to reckless behavior and just plain old, you know, they were just inept. It was stupid. It was real stupid.
Joe Murray wants to get his last licks in. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Brian Laundrie is only allegedly guilty, and Mr. Bertolino has a perfect record. He had 3 clients and 0 indicted for anything related to murder, except his client's dead. Fuzzy Doxy, thank you so much, and thank you for appreciating. Thanks for the $9.99 super chat. Joe, you haven't had a chance to jump in our chat lately. But the Lord, that guy, he took a beating. That guy Bertolino took a beating by the what's her name? The news reporter from News Nation, Ashley Banfield, gave him a beating on TV. And Joe will disagree with that, but she definitely got the better of him. I think he was dribbling on himself. He didn't know what to say.
I'm sure facts are going to dribble out over time on what the FBI and or other law enforcement developed with regard to uh, evidence that would tie Brian directly to the murder of Gabby Petito. I have a strong suspicion there may have been a note in that when he was recovered after his suicide, because they label it a suicide so quickly. The gun may have been recovered. There may have been a note, and maybe he wrote about being sorry that he accidentally killed her. There's so much to talk about with that case. But Joe, I appreciate the banter, and I know that that's
We
your
haven't.
position. But I think there's too much pointing in the direction of Brian. But we'll get into it sometime, and we'll discuss it. And we're going to go over it tomorrow night.
RDNAC. If you go on News Nation and you search on YouTube, you search Ashley Banfield and Steve Bertolino, who was Brian Laundrie's attorney. I'm sure you can pull up
She took him to school.
that episode. She totally took him to school. And I think he was wishing he was back in law school or back on law. Here he is representing people, and he's thousands of miles away. He never bothered to go to Florida. He's representing them from, live chat, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That was not a good look on his part. I don't think he was up for the challenge of being on an interview like that, a live interview. Listen, it is what it is. He probably didn't serve his clients well, because I think that, look at the result with Brian Laundrie. Even if he did kill Gabby Petito, he could have been in jail and still been alive. Or maybe he would have been acquitted. God only knows. But I think that they allowed that kid to be placed in a position where he was able to kill himself and take his own life. I'm not blaming anybody. I don't think it was done directly or with intent, but it is what it is. And I think that's why he looks so bad in the media too,
Absolutely. Andy the Gabby Cabby, thank you, buddy, for joining us in the chat. Thank you for all your support of Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. And thanks for all you do on your own podcast. You're a hell of a podcaster, great communicator, and you got a good heart for all the people that join us in the chat, all the family that we have in this YouTube community.
Thank you for the well wishes, Andy, too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Everybody, all the subscribers. I know I got a lot of people shouting out to feel good and all of that, and prayers. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Really does.
I think that the next time we do a culinary show, though, Phil should be wearing a chef's hat, at least one of those tall.
Listen, you really want me to mess my hair? Come on.
Yeah. He's going to have to mess his hair up. He's going to have to wear one of those chef's hats,
Let me see what I could do.
Come on. He's got family in the business. He can get one of those hats, I think, So, guys, we're at an hour and like 7 minutes, and this is when we usually like to just give our last thoughts. This is our second to last show. Tomorrow night's show will be our last show of 2021. It's been an eventful year. It's been stressful a little bit. I know that a lot you guys, and not that I'm expecting you to shed any tears for us, but this is it's tough keeping a YouTube channel. It's not easy as everyone thinks. Like, you just go on the air. There's not a million phone calls made. There's not a million hours you spend on the computer try to set it up. There's a lot of work to it. And I want to thank all you guys. Of course, Cheated No More. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Glad to make it to the chat. The channel's going great. Happy New Year's to everyone. We're hoping we blow up big time in 2022. And I'm going to be along for the ride. And so is Phil Grimaldi. And hopefully Tommy Dades will join us a bunch more times, because I think he's a great guest and he's got a great story to tell. Tommy, final words?
I had a great time this year with you guys. It was a lot of fun with all the different guests that you had me on with you two. Your show is blowing up. You always have interesting people on, great topics. As a retired cop, it's a pleasure to watch it. And I just want to wish everybody a safe, happy, and healthy New Year. And all the guys out there that are working nationwide, God bless, be safe, be careful, and stay out of harm's way.
Absolutely. Philly, last words?
Last words, Tommy. Thank you so much for coming on. I pointed out that you're a modest guy. Look at the way he wrote his name that's on the screen. I put Detective Phil Grimaldi. Bill puts retired sergeant. He just puts Tommy Dades. He's a first grade detective. He's a modest guy. I'm telling you, and I always say this: you're the only guy I know that was interviewed on 60 Minutes. Thank you so much for coming on. He doesn't realize all the great accomplishments. I got to point it out from. I'm not trying to kiss your ass, Tommy. I'm just saying the truth, about the boxing, all the great things you did. And look, Jimmy Calandra, there's a guy that you helped turn his life around. Look at the success he's got with his podcast. We with him. One last thing, just everybody, this Omicron variant, I talked about it. My whole family had it. Everybody around me had it. Thank God we're okay. Stay strong out there. Wear your mask. Take your vitamin D and your zinc and all of that stuff, and just try to stay healthy. The doctors assured me that it was just going to be the Omicron is mild. It doesn't look like it's going to put people in hospital so much. If you have the shot, even better. So, and I'm very looking forward to tomorrow night's show. We're going to recap a lot of what we did. We're going to talk about stuff that's to come. We got a lot of great ideas on tap. We're working on a lot of great guests, and it's going to be good. 21 was good for Police Off the Cuff, and 22 is going to be better.
That's great. Well said, Phil. And folks, again, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all you guys for making this channel what it is. And we love bringing these stories to you. And as Phil was talking about, we're going to try to get some great, great guests for 2022. And that's one of the things, and I ad nauseum talk about this, is that I love so much about doing this show is the great people that I get to meet.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So having said that, guys, good night, and thank you so much for joining us.
Stay safe, everybody.
One episode just ain't enough.